Nice.
Okay.
Dennis?
Good morning. My name is Dennis Falloon, and I'm the District 7 Safety Academy Coordinator. And I want to welcome you to our first District 7 Safety Academy webinar, Strategic Highway Safety Planning. This topic will be presented by Joe Santos, PE, and the Florida State Safety Engineer in the Central FDOT office in Tallahassee. Joe, it's all yours. Thank you.
Okay, Dennis, great. I was hoping if you could perhaps go down the existing PDF file that's on right now, kind of set the stage as you will, talk a bit about the webinar series, the different topics and such.
Okay. Um, Anthony, you can flip through this, right? We're going to be having these webinars. The first 12 is in this first part of the Safety Academy, and they will be on Wednesdays from 10 to 12 o'clock as the range allowed for the presenters to present their topics. It'll start, as we know today, is the 23rd of October, and it will go through January 29th. Then after that, we will begin another 12 topics. But as you can see on the list here, I'm not going to read each one of them. What are the topics? You can see them listed and the dates. Some of these are indicated with specific to District 7 local agencies. This does not mean that you can't be part of that webinar. It just means it'll be geared more toward District 7 local agencies. You can still learn stuff from it, but if you're in a different district, you need to go to that district and find out what their process is. My contact information below. If you need have any questions or any additional information, you can email me or give me a call. That's pretty much it.
Excellent. Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome, Joe.
I thought it was good information to kind of set the stage as you will.
Okay.
First of all, good morning again. I know that we've got quite a few folks online, and this is an exciting time for me because I commend District 7, our Tampa office, on being very progressive in addressing safety and coordinating with their partners in addressing safety on local roads. So I commend you all for this effort. As Anthony, as was mentioned earlier, we've got a 2-hour session slated, but I've got probably 45 minutes worth of presentation, so we have plenty of time for questions and such. And just to kind of set the stage a little bit with our first session is just to talk about our strategic highway safety plan. Our focus here is on our Florida-specific strategic highway safety plan. And my presentation today will cover both an update to the plan and lastly, speak into some performance of the plan. Before I kind of get specifically in the plan, I thought it was important to kind of share with you some Florida statistics in regards to injuries. And sometimes, we in the transportation safety area, kind of take it for granted that our task is basically to reduce our fatal and serious injury crashes. But when we present this material to others, I think it's important to kind of get a feel for how does traffic safety relate to other types of safety initiatives or, for that matter, just injuries overall. So the first question is kind of posing on this first slide is how does motor vehicle traffic injury deaths compare with other types of injury deaths? And so we're looking at overall injuries, trips and falls, poisonings, that kind of thing. When we look at the data, because much of what we do is data driven, when we break it down by ages, in Florida, the injuries are the #1 cause of fatalities for ages 1 through 44, and third leading cause of death overall, compared to after heart disease and cancer. That's just general injury specifics. But if you go one tier down, and kind of compare the 10 leading causes of injury death overall, motor vehicle traffic overall against all injury levels, injury types in 2011 was number 2 overall, just below poisoning. But the other takeaway here is that this particular slide, through our Department of Health partners, when you look at motor vehicle traffic-related injury deaths, number 1 across the board from ages 5 through 24, and number 2 for the younger ages and such. But that, if you look at not only 2011, but even look at previous years, you'll see the same, very similar trend. Motor vehicle traffic either being either number 2 here or number 1 overall. And when we look at not just injury deaths, but if we look at the non-fatal injuries, motor vehicle traffic still high in the top 3 overall for all ages. So just important to know how motor vehicle traffic injuries, both non-fatal and fatal, kind of compare with other areas, other injury types. And then I thought this was pretty interesting. If you go back through 1980, and these are national numbers here, but the motor vehicle traffic numbers were very high in comparing to poisoning and drug poisoning. But over the year, our motor vehicle traffic crashes and such have been slightly declining, where our poisoning and drug poisonings have been inclining or increasing. So I just thought it was just some good information to know history-wise. Another part of the story, though, for when we look at crashes, specific motor vehicle truck crashes within the state, it's important to look at the distribution amongst our local versus state, both on our vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, our centerline miles, which is basically how many lane miles are out there, and crashes. Since we are speaking to, our primary audience here is our local agencies, I think it's important to know that as we address safety, transportation safety in the state of Florida, it's not just on our state-maintained roads, but we have to be looking at local roads. And this slide here helps present that. The slide here, or the part here to the left, is just talking about how much traffic is out there, and we measure traffic through our what we call daily vehicle miles traveled. The purple here is showing our state traffic, and our green is showing the local, and pretty substantial amount of traffic on our local roads. 46%. This is looking at 2010, but once again, if you look at earlier years, it's a similar kind of trend. Nearly half of the traffic on local and split between state. Now, when we look at the centerline miles, or basically who maintains the roadways, we've got 10% of our lane miles out there that are state maintained, or roughly about 12,000 centerline miles, as compared to nearly 110,000 miles local. Basically, the takeaway here is you got a lot of traffic on a lot of roads when we start talking local roads. And this is a challenge when we start talking about safety overall, this 110,000 centerline miles. The other part, speaking to crashes, we've got a pretty substantial number of crashes on local roads, 40% local, 60% on state. So the combination of all 3 of these parts of the puzzle kind of tell a story. On local roads specifically, high percentage of crashes, 40%, great number of centerline miles, 90% statewide, and a lot of traffic. So we need, the takeaway from here is that when we start talking about safety, we really need to incorporate efforts such as this to address safety on local roads. All right, so that's just kind of setting the stage, basically some statistics to kind of help explain the point. Now I'm going to get into the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. So I got a few questions here. Basically, first question is the SHSP, or the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, a data-driven plan to drive down fatalities? And Anthony, if we had the ability to do survey, this would be our first opportunity here. But I'm going to ask everybody, and I can hear a lot of answers, and I hear a lot of yeses. Yes, the SHSP is a data-driven plan to drive down fatalities. The reason for that is because when we address safety throughout the state, we're looking at reducing crashes, both as fatal and serious injury type of crashes. And we need the data to support where we need to focus those efforts to bring those fatal and serious injury crashes down. Next question, is the SHSP a roadmap to achieve zero fatalities? All right, the answer to that is also yes. Yes, our roadmap here, our ultimate goal is zero fatalities. I'm going to share with you some goals of our Strategic Highway Safety Plan, but ultimately, we would like to get to the point where we achieve zero fatalities. Is it a comprehensive approach to reduce deaths and serious injuries? I think from my earlier comments, it's pretty straightforward. The answer is yes to that one, focusing on reducing fatal and serious injuries. Is it a plan that addresses engineering, enforcement, education, and emergency response, or typically our 4 E's? The answer is yes. We want to be sure that when we're addressing transportation safety, we're including engineering, our infrastructure type of improvements, our enforcement, education, and emergency response on all roads. And I want to do an emphasis for all roads, because as I earlier stated on the slide, that the issue on local roads, when we're talking about transportation safety or reducing crashes, we want to address that issue for all public roads. And lastly, all the above, I think straightforward, the answer is yes. So just a few highlights of what the SHSP is all about. So a little bit of background. Florida did our first Strategic Highway Safety Plan in 2006. And so we have had the plan in place for quite some time. And basically, as was mentioned earlier, we used the data to support where we needed to focus our opportunities to reduce those serious and fatal injuries. The planning process, about 6 months, we had, with all of our 4E partners, we had safety summits. We also incorporated web-based survey to kind of highlight what the perception of the safety concern is. I mentioned those high numbers with the traffic crashes. Sometimes people kind of speculate why, what's causing those crashes, and part of that the survey was kind of focusing on getting that perspective from all of our partners. We had numerous executive committee and implementation team meetings to kind of finalize and be sure that management, top-down, was on board with the plan. And we also established some emphasis area teams. So the 2006 SHSP included the following emphasis areas: aggressive driving, intersection crashes, our vulnerable road users. In Florida, we decided to kind of group our vulnerable road users and to include pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorcyclists. So each one of those is a unique challenge in addressing. And then our last highlighted emphasis area was lane departure crashes. As was mentioned earlier, data-driven. So We are tracking, how well we're performing as a state to bring these numbers down. And this slide here is showing you both the fatal numbers and the serious injury numbers, how we've had a steady decline through the implementation of our 2006 up through 2010. All right. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue, but if there are any questions, I guess we're able to use the chat pod for anything. So I think right now I don't see anything in the chat pod. All right, the SHSP success story. Many accomplishments from the 2006 plan. We passed a primary safety belt law, passed the ignition interlock system, and basically the ignition interlock law, that's where if drivers have been convicted of a DUI with anything over a blood alcohol content of 0.15, that they would be required to use an ignition interlock. And basically, this would be a setup where a driver would have to kind of breathe into an apparatus and to confirm that they had not been drinking in order for the vehicle to work. This required motorcycle riders to complete basic rider course to receive motorcycle endorsement. Another key accomplishment. We've seen some reduction in numbers, and we contribute much of those reduction numbers in our motorcycle numbers based on this basic rider course. We've created many coalitions for motorcycle safety, impaired driving, our aging road users, and traffic records. These coalitions are really working steadily on getting those 4 E's together and talking through specifics and programs and recommendations in addressing each of these areas. And then our last major accomplishment was the winner of the 2010 Excellence Award from our Governor's Highway Safety Association for our motorcycle safety program. So excellent accomplishments from our previous work on our strategic highway safety plan. Okay, now that's a little bit background on the previous. We've since updated the strategic highway safety plan. We did update it. We started initiating an update back in 2011. We looked at our vision, mission, and goal. We reviewed the data and identified different strategies for each of our emphasis areas. So moving ahead with our strategic highway safety plan vision, mission, and goal. Vision, to provide a safer surface transportation system for residents, businesses, and visitors. Pretty high level vision there. Mission, utilizing engineering, enforcement, education, emergency response. Focus resources where opportunities for safety improvements are greatest. A lot of that mission application or implementation efforts, a lot of that's being done through our coalition efforts, where we're bringing all of these E's to the table, the engineering, enforcement, education, emergency response. Then lastly, a goal. It's important to track how we're progressing through with our strategic highway safety plan. Our goal is 5% reduction in the rolling 5-year averages of fatals and serious injuries. So actually, I've got a few slides here that will speak to that near the end as far as how we've been doing as a state to meet that goal. So moving ahead to our 2012 emphasis areas, aggressive driving, intersection crashes, vulnerable road users, lane departure crashes, very similar to our previous 2006 plan, but we've added a few other ones. Our impaired driving, our at-risk drivers, both the aging road users and teens, and our distracted driving and traffic data. Each of these now are part of our emphasis areas. A little bit about each of the emphasis area plans. On aggressive driving, the facts show that fatalities have declined from 2008 to 10, and serious injuries have also declined in 2008 and 10. The problem is really kind of right now, at least based on this data, most serious for male drivers 24 to 34. This is a primarily enforcement initiative. So our strategies here are definitely to include law enforcement, education, and training, and such. Intersections is primarily engineering type. We've got a substantial number of intersection-related crashes. Nearly 29% of all fatalities, based on the 2006 through 10, have shown are at intersections. On the strategies, we're looking at systemic safety, access management, basically controlling access points via median openings or driveways and such. Updating policies, guidelines, handbooks, and training. There's been a very proactive level and support from our Federal Highway Administration for supporting training and such for intersections. And to tie in the systemic safety, we've been, as a state, incorporating much more of like one signal per lane, back plates, pedestrian countdown. So there's been much work done throughout the state to try to bring these numbers down on the intersection emphasis area. Vulnerable road users, 534 bicycle deaths and over 32,000 injuries, 2006 through 10. Very high numbers, and compared to other states throughout the nation. In fact, so much that our secretary has done a focused initiative addressing bicyclists and pedestrians to bring this down. This is spearheaded through our District 1 Secretary, Billy Hadaway, and as an agency and as a coalition, there's been much work done to try to bring these numbers down.
Joe, there was a question in the chat about aggressive driving. The question is, how is aggressive driving tracked in the police report, since that is not a current checkbox? Do we want to hold questions for later, or should I interject as they come up?
That's okay. On the aggressive driving, right now, aggressive driving, as far as being tracked, that's a very good point, is not being not a specific box on the crash report. There have been some changes in 2011 that does include some aggressive type driving data, but right now, as far as DOT, Florida DOT, we haven't been, I don't have any performance measures just yet for aggressive driving. So this is an area still needs some more coordination efforts with our enforcement partners to properly handle.
If I can add to that, Joe, what we've done when analyzing the data, since aggressive driving by law is defined as a sequence of events that lead to,
yes,
you need to be speeding while changing lanes in the middle of an intersection and not using your signal, it's a combination of events, and a police report is typically a snapshot of the conditions right before the crash or at the time of the crash. We use the harmful event of the crash and assume that in order for someone to have collided in an angle collision, that someone was speeding or someone disregarded the right-of-way of somebody else, or the best that we can do is using harmful events and assuming that a sequence of events occurred that led to the incidence of that crash. We cast a slightly wider net than perhaps you would if we had a box for aggressive driving, but with the tools that we have right now, using harmful event is just about as good as we can do.
Well, to add on to that, there is the opportunity to look at if there was a citation given as part of the crash report. you could look into citation data to help support that also. But it is a challenge to properly use the data to determine if, in fact, aggressive driving is a component of a crash. All right, I don't want to skip anything here, Anthony. I was on
19.
19.
19.
Okay, vulnerable road users. I kind of spoke to that already on the strategies when it comes to vulnerable road users, and the fact that as an agency we have a Secretary's Focus Initiative and also a coalition. We're looking at strategies for both not just infrastructure, but a lot with behavior type initiatives. Alert Today, Alive Tomorrow is one focused initiative to really support the pedestrian and bicyclist safety initiatives. Motorcyclists, another component of our vulnerable road users. The numbers have decreased somewhat from 2006 and 10, but with our latest report, motorcyclists, including our other vulnerable road users, have seen an incline somewhat. So I'll be reporting to that here in just a few minutes. Some of the strategies on motorcyclists, kind of reaching out to our partners and providing them the data to help support where they want to focus efforts, both on a county and city level. There's been a lot of promotion here within our safety office on protective gear, emphasizing the rider training, and educating riders on license endorsements, wearing bright clothing and such. A big initiative too on reducing any alcohol or drug involvement in with motorcycle riders, promoting laws and regulations and targeting our high-risk populations. Lane departures is another big, huge item, and right up there with the intersections in regards to looking at, high percentages of statewide traffic fatalities. This particular one, even with intersections, is still even consistent. The numbers at high percentages on our local roads also. So it's we're doing a good job of bringing our numbers down, but still the numbers are really extremely high. Strategies, we're looking at a lot of engineering practices, our audible rumble stripes that we do, along with our rumble strips and such, are to make the driver aware that they're leaving the roadway. The other part is that we are doing a lot more with our law enforcement, increasing public educationing, and then emergency responders. It's when crashes do occur, we want to be sure that we are partnering with our emergency responders to make sure that we are trying to get to that crash as soon as possible in order to minimize any of the severity of the injury to the driver or those involved in the crash. Impaired driving, numbers have shown to be dropping based on the 2006 through 10. We have had a high percent of the statewide traffic deaths in regards to impaired driving. The strategies, enforcement, public education, having data collection analysis, and working towards an impaired driving legislation. At-risk drivers, this is the new ones. The new one with this coalition has been very active in addressing the aging road users, those over 65. The numbers have shown a decline with the performance report. I'll share that with you. When we look at moving ahead as a state, we're anticipating a high increase in those Floridians that will be driving and will be over the age of 65. So there's a lot of concern as far as what we can do as a state with education, having some transportation alternatives if needed for those drivers over the age of 65. The other at-risk drivers is our teen drivers. As I showed on that first entry slide with the injury severity levels, our teen drivers are included in that as like the #1 area. So this is definitely a very serious component of our strategic highway safety plan. Motor vehicle crashes are the #1 killer of teens, and that was pretty clear from that first slide that I shared with you. Some strategies that we're doing: expanding network of concerned individuals, create that safe driving culture, and support traffic laws and regulations. One of the earlier success stories is this graduated driver's license. So requiring just more drive time or hours for our teen drivers before they actually get an operator's license. Distracted driving. This one has gotten a lot of media attention with the recent law passed in regards to texting. But texting is just one component of distracted driving. Getting into the routine of eating and reading and doing everything but driving is one item that we're looking at to try to discourage drivers and kind of focus on the road and not be distracted. There have been some recent changes to our crash report to help support the data to support distracted driving. In 2011, with a new crash report, there have been some more fields to accommodate distracted driving, but it's still a challenge, though, because it's somewhat subjective for the enforcement officer to really determine if, in fact, the driver was distracted. But some of the strategies that we're doing is public awareness and outreach. I mentioned earlier about the graduated driver's license. So this would help also, not just with our teens, but our distracted driving enforcement, and basically getting the word out to education to our drivers, the impact of what distracting driving, or to discourage distracted driving. And our last one, traffic records. This is a big effort. Our traffic records coordinate committee we have in place here in Florida. A lot of our partners here are with Department of Highway Safety Motor Vehicles, DOT, and other public agencies. We're looking at multi-agency initiatives, not just on the crash data as a major component of our traffic records, but other data such as citation data. We're looking to track, that the data that we receive is complete and accurate and uniform. Ability to link the data so we can help focus our safety efforts, and accessibility and use of the data is another key component of what the traffic records team is all about. So who supports the plan? We've got state departments. Department of Transportation is kind of the lead on this strategic highway safety plan, but our key partners are Highway Safety Motor Vehicles, Department of Health, Department of Education, our Florida Highway Patrol. We've got the police chiefs, the metropolitan planning organizations, and then our key partners, federal side from a Federal Highway Administration, Federal Motor Carrier, and our National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or our LATSA team. All right, so really, that pretty much completes the Strategic Highway Safety Plan update and a little bit of history on the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. It's just important that even though the focus of this is a local traffic safety, that it's really important how you kind of understand all the pieces of the puzzle, as you will, because there is some overlap with some of these. You know, we start talking about distracted driving. You know, we've got some distracted driving that are components of our lane departure or our intersection. So there's a lot of overlap with much of these emphasis areas. So I hope that I didn't spend too much time on this, but the big takeaway here is that you've got a pretty good understanding of what our emphasis areas are all about. Now, it's also really important to look at how well we're performing as a state and looking at these 5-year trends. So the next few slides, I think, will be of value to everybody because I've kind of separated this performance information with a breakdown by our districts or our regional areas of the agency. So first of all, this particular figure is right from our Strategic Highway Safety Plan, and looking at that 5-year average here, 06 through 10, these are what the actual numbers were. And so what we've done with our Strategic Highway Safety Plan is to look at the 5-year average or the 2006 through 2010 column here, and roll it forward with a 5% reduction, and to establish our goals. So we've recently finalized our 2012 crash data, and for our emphasis areas where we have data to do the evaluation, the emphasis areas in green are ones that we've met that 5% reduction. Unfortunately, for our vulnerable road users, we have not met that goal. So this is just a highlight. This audience is probably focused with our District 7 area, but for those others that might want a statewide perspective, this is just a map showing our different district areas. District 3 up on the northwest panhandle, District 2 northeastern, District 7, District 5 eastern central, District 1 southwest, District 4 south, and then District 6. So just to kind of get a feel for our district breakdown. So when we look at the 2008 through 2012 statewide, we've been meeting our goal here. This slide, basically, the red circles are the goal, and then the triangles was what the actual data is that we have. So if the triangle is below the circle here for these to understand the visual, that's what our goal is. We're trying to to meet that, have the triangle below the circle. And so statewide, we've been doing that very well, 07 through 11, meeting it, and 8 through 12, meeting that goal. This is a pretty busy slide, a lot of information here, but here's our District 7 column here. So this one's for kind of a breakdown by our various districts. So here we have as an overview our statewide numbers. Basically, this information here is the same as the previous slide, showing the statewide numbers. But here we're showing for District 7 that the District 7's been doing a great job meeting those goals for both 7 7 through 11 and 8 through 12, which is our most recent 5-year that we've completed. All right, so just go through a few of these here. On aggressive driving, we've been meeting our goal as a state, and looking at each of our districts, we've also been meeting our goals. In fact, District 7 has really been shining on the aggressive driving component. When we look at intersections, the same as a state, we've been meeting our goal here, and it's consistent throughout the state here that we've also been meeting our goal. The other takeaway on the visual here is on some of these slides might be difficult to see, but if the black number is below the red number, that's a good point. That's a good thing. We want the black numbers below the red numbers. That shows that we're meeting our goal, our target. Lane departure, also statewide meeting our goal, and across the board meeting our goal with each of our districts. Now, just to highlight again, these numbers are not just on state roads. These numbers are all for all public roads. The pedestrians, a little different story. Statewide, we have not met our statewide goal here. And across our districts, it's been kind of unique to each district. District 7 has not met their goal, and some districts have met it in earlier years, but okay. For bicyclists, very similar to pedestrians, have not been meeting the goal, and kind of the slide kind of speaks for itself. And kind of the same on the motorcyclists, just have not been meeting the goal. So basically, it's a data-driven plan, and so the data just helps support the need to, one, just kind of see what we can do to bring these numbers down through continued efforts with all of our E's. The drivers aged 15 through 19, we've been meeting our goal. Good stuff. District 7's really been shining in this area. Drivers age 65, been meeting our goal. Statewide and consistent through all of our districts. All right. So just to kind of overview, I spoke briefly about our Florida statistics and both injuries and traffic data. Provided a Strategic Highway Safety Plan summary and update, and I share with you our latest performance of our Strategic Highway Safety Plan, looking at that 2008 through 2012 data. And with that, completes the presentation. I do have on this closing slide where our Strategic Highway Safety Plan can be found. Can be downloaded from this site that I'm showing here. And if you have any other specific questions, here's my contact information.
Joe, there was a question about the figures that you were showing. The population in Florida has been increasing significantly over the past 5 years. Considering this, are your goals established based on percentages of drivers or just the number of occurrences?
Right now, the numbers are basically just on the occurrences.
looking at the chat here, there was another question about the intersection injuries and fatalities.
Yes.
Are they, the intersection ones, are they related mainly to engineering issues or drivers in violations of current traffic laws?
It's probably a happy blend of those, both the driver and the citation. I don't have a good answer on that one, to be honest with you. When we look at contributing causes of drivers, we look at much of the contributing causes of the drivers at the intersections, but I have not gone specifically and looked at citation data. So that's a very good question.
That's a loaded question. It is a good question actually, and we don't necessarily examine the citations either. But I would assume that it's a blend, like you're saying, because whenever there is a collision, something went wrong. If driver error or a misinterpretation of a sign, whatever the case may be, and to pinpoint it down and say that it was a violation of the law or an engineering fix is interesting. Another way of answering that question is that we do have a 4E approach. So we acknowledge that it is not just let's go out there and engineer things better. We educate as well. We work with enforcement and we work with emergency response. So it is a happy blend.
Yeah.
There's a question about whether the presentation will be available for download later. Yes, absolutely. We are recording the session as well, so both the presentation and the recording of the presentation will be available for download. We'll follow up via email to all the folks that are here. Another question from the chat: what next steps should the audience do to help drive down fatalities and support the Florida Strategic Highway Safety Plan? What can they do, Joe?
Yeah, well, I would encourage you, one, to download the Strategic Highway Safety Plan to kind of get a feel for kind of what it's all about. I really just highlighted it through this webinar. I would encourage you to kind of reach out to your district safety engineer and see and ask them, how they can participate. That would be an idea of my next steps, or those would be the next steps that I would encourage. I would encourage you to go to the safety office website, where we have much of the information in regards to all these coalitions and such, and with that would have the contact information so you can reach out to those coalitions and support those coalitions.
As a follow-up or additional information for sending out links to download the presentations later, we made this webinar open to everyone, not just to the folks that had registered. If you are present and online right now and you did not register, I do not have your email address, so I will not be able to follow up with you. If you can please send me an email, I can type my email address into the chat box for everyone, and I will add you to the list of folks that we will be sending the follow-up emails to. I have no way of getting a hold of you.
Is there, Anthony, am I online?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I just wanted to mention to the audience, if there's no more questions at this time, that next week we will have the second webinar, which will be on highway safety evaluation, and that will be presented by Mark Majeski, who's a PE engineer, and he is a District 7 safety consultant for them. for the safety office, and he'll be making that presentation on Wednesday, October 30th. So if you haven't registered and you would like to, please do so between now and next Tuesday.
Great. Does anybody else, did Peter or Felix want to chime in and say anything to the group, or are we?
Okay. If there's no more questions for Joe Santos, then I guess we will end this first webinar. And I guess there's no other comments, Anthony.
Okay, so I will end the recording now. Thank you, everyone, for attending.